On the first day of moving into my new house back in April of 2015, my neighbor came to introduce himself, and it wasn't long before I deduced that he was in the drug dealing business. I initially thought that wasn't so bad. I like a smoke from time to time, and having him next door could be useful. Even if I went back in time right now to warn myself, there's no way I could convey how wrong I was. Now, 2015 was otherwise known as the worst year of my life. It certainly wasn't what Back to the Future had led me to expect. After losing my dad to cancer, my sister having a miscarriage, and my barbecue exploding on my birthday gathering, I was beginning to think my luck would have to turn soon. It was August. The summer was ending and nothing bad had happened for 2 whole months. I'd been up late watching It Follows, and not being much of a horror fan, I was suitably creeped out and slightly high. My girlfriend had come home late from a work function and had gone straight to bed, and at about 12:30 I went up there too. It's probably worth explaining that this house has 3 floors. The ground floor has an entrance, spare room and stairs. The first floor is the kitchen and living room, and the top floor is the bedroom and bathroom. It's one of 3 houses in a little mews in a leafy Sussex village. I went to bed and was soon drifting off. About 15 minutes later I heard some banging. I didn't pay it much mind, assuming that watching a horror movie before bed had made me oversensitive, so I started to go back to sleep. The next memory I have is of shouting. Lots of shouting. The bedroom door burst open, and a group of large figures stormed in, brandishing crowbars. I remember screaming in that way you try to in a dream when nothing comes out. I also recall spinning around slightly so as to block my girlfriend, an incredibly sweet and innocent creature who had barely witnessed a crime in her life. I thrust out my legs, kicking one of them in the crown jewels firmly. This led the ringleader to crack me on the legs with a crowbar, telling me in no uncertain terms to not do that again. So now, there are at least 4 men lined up alongside my side of the bed. Maybe 5. Hard to tell. I didn't get to put my glasses on. My girlfriend is screaming, they're all shouting, and I'm incredibly confused. The ringleader then demands that I give him the bag of money. What money? I asked. Give us the fucking bag of money, we know you've got the bag of money. The ringleader repeats. Several times. I don't have a bag of money, I explained. It's hard to remember the order of events, but I do know one thing for sure. Tom Cruise popped into my head. The previous night I was watching Mission Impossible 3. I do like that film, and I had it on in the background while I did the washing up. I remember pondering the scene where Ethan Hunt's wife has a gun to her head. I want to give you what you want, but you've got to do what's right, exclaimed Hunt. I wonder if the screenwriter had researched this dialogue. Is this what you are supposed to say in a hostage crisis? Well, it apparently sowed a seed, because I found myself repeating those words. I don't have a bag of money. I want to get you what you want, but you have to do what's right and leave this poor girl alone, are the words that came, strangely confidently, out of my mouth. Yeah, well, we know you sold drugs to my daughter, said the one I considered to be the sidekick. Nah, it was my sister, said the ringleader in correction. For my neighbor is a drug-dealing maniac, a weird guy from Essex. He's in his mid-30s, about 5'8", with light blonde hair and eyebrows to match. He's skinny and zany, usually hopping from one foot to the other as he tries to keep his excessive energy in check. He smokes weed from 7 and boxes on his outdoor punch bag whenever the weed isn't enough to keep his energy in check. Sometimes he can be seen in the communal car park making things, like the time he made a wooden triangle, or he juggles balls with his dogs, or he shadow boxes. You know, the usual things you expect to see your neighbor doing at literally any hour of the day or night. Still, realizing that the intruders were in the wrong house, I wasn't entirely keen on sending them next door. As much as I disliked my neighbor, I didn't think he deserved a group of masked men storming in, so I continued to try and talk these people out of the house. I'm not a drug dealer, so I've no idea what you're talking about. There's a couple of MacBooks downstairs, 60 quid in my wallet, and iMac. Whatever you want, just take it and go, mate. Hearing this offer, the ringleader realized I was being compliant, and if I was willing to give up a few grand's worth of computers, why wouldn't I just give him the bag of money he was seeking? Slowly, the cogs turned. Is this number 27? He demanded to know. The whole area is. Yeah, but is this number 227 Acacia Avenue? No, it's number 1. We've got the wrong house. The realization was startling. They all shouted. One guy had been searching every room, cupboard, and drawer. He had given up already. One or two of the others went downstairs to get him, leaving me and my girlfriend with the ringleader and his sidekick, a guy I suspected was far darker in soul than the guy doing all the talking. Right, you can't call the cops or we'll come back. We know where you live, the sidekick said. Emboldened by the realization that these guys were morons, I laughed. You seriously think I won't call the cops? Best I can do is give you a 30-second head start. The ringleader then apologized. He said they were looking for someone else, and there had been a mix-up. I said something along the lines of, well, I am glad we sorted that out. At which point he shook my hand, told me he hoped my girlfriend would be okay, and forced the sidekick to leave with him. I picked up the bed and jammed it against the door, and enveloped my traumatized girlfriend in a big hug and told her it was over. Which it almost was. Little did we know, the morons had decided to try again, this time knocking my neighbor's door in and storming his house. But he was in the kitchen, so they went flying past him up to the bedroom where they found his girlfriend. My neighbor, being the kind of guy he is, abandoned his GF, ran to my front door and stormed into my home. The go kid. The go kid. There are people in my house. He screamed. No shit. I responded. Why do you think my fucking door is wide open? I went out to meet him while talking to the police on my GF's phone. He grabbed a knife from my kitchen, the phone from my hand, and went after them. I decided I was done, went back to enjoy the barricade of the bedroom. It took the police a while to turn up, because the genius neighbor of mine told them they had guns, so we had to wait for armed response. Eventually, my girlfriend and I cautiously walked down to the living room. The police eventually arrived, but they knew it was too late. So they stood outside our houses having a chat and a bit of a laugh. It's likely to be the only time I tell 4 men with machine guns to shut the fuck up. The rest of the night was a mess of police as they took statements, searched for evidence and quizzed my neighbor about, yes, the bag of money. They were convinced they could bust him for something, as they had wanted to for some time. Turns out he had broken his foot when he leapt from the window, and so he was carted off in an ambulance. As the stretcher went past me in the car park, he tried to talk to me. Go kid. I just want to say one thing, mate. I just want to say one thing. He screamed. Neighbor, you're not physically capable of saying just one thing. The police, who knew him all too well, erupted in laughter. This humiliation would haunt him for some time. Eventually, I heard that my neighbor had claimed it was all because of an Instagram picture he had posted on Facebook, and he thought he knew the ringleader, a scumbag he'd recently connected with on FB. He gave the police 2 weeks to charge the guy. To the credit of the police, they arrested him but didn't have the evidence to charge him. About a month later, my neighbor beckoned me into his garage where he remonstrated with me for blaming him for the ordeal. They terrorized us too, he said. He then told me he had taken matters into his own hands, dealing with the ringleader himself, putting him in some sort of box and, I presume, torturing him. He tried to show me some sort of video evidence, but I refused to look at it. We have to look after our women, he said. He then said that he was aware I had reacted like a pussy when the guys got into my room. A bit bemused by this, I asked him if it was more gutless to scream or to jump out a window and leave my partner behind. This enraged him, and we haven't spoken a single word to each other since. The only stuff that was stolen was money from our wallets and my Leatherman it had that's not a knife engraved in it. Nobody was ever charged with the break-in, and eventually life went back to normal, albeit with a very expensive new front door. I moved house this year, so I can only hope I never see my neighbor's face again. I know some people find this story entirely unbelievable, but it would appear I've got backup on that front, as one of the responding officers is on Reddit and confirmed the story's validity on my original post. The link is in the description if you're interested. The police called it a scum-on-scum attack, and when those inadvertently mess with innocent bystanders, the scumbags are usually apologetic. They even said, don't be surprised if you get an anonymous bunch of flowers. We didn't, but judging by some of the messages I have received, it really is something that happens.